for introduction between 2019 to 2024, Turkey experienced significant demographic and economic changes. By 2024, the country's total population reached approximately 85.7 million with a nearly equal gender distribution, around 43.66 million males and 43.81 million females, covering a land area of 783,562 square kilometers. Turkey remains one of the largest countries in its region. The labour force expanded to around 32.9 million people, and the labour force participation rate reached a record high of 54.7% in late 2024. During the same period, unemployment declined steadily, falling from 13.7% in 2019 to 8.5% by the end of 2024, reflecting gradually improvement in the job market and economic activity. Economically, Turkey's nominal GDP stood at around $1.32 trillion in 2024, ranking it as the 17th largest economy in the world. The growth reflects country's diverse economy supported by industry, service, and strong export base. However, inflation remained a major challenge. It was recorded at 15.2 in 2019, slightly decreased in 2024, then spiked dramatically to 72.3% in 2022, largely due to external shocks, currency depreciation, and domestic imbalance. Following a series of strict monetary policies, inflation began to ease, falling to 37.9% by April 2025. In summary, Turkey's recent years have been marked by a more active labour market, strong economic output, and stabilizing inflation rate. Through structural reforms remain essential to ensure long-term growth and economic resilience. Right, so next is theory of inflation. Inflation is a gradual loss of purchasing power that is reflected in a broad rise in price for goods and services over time. The inflation rate is calculated as the average price increase of a basket of selected goods and services over 1 year. High inflation means that prices are increasing quickly, while low inflation means the prices are growing more slowly. Inflation can be contrasted with deflation, which occurs when price decline and purchasing power increase.
I will explaining about types of inflation. First thing is demand pull effect. Demand pull inflation happens when people have more money to spend and they start buying more goods and services. This increases overall demand. However, if the economy cannot produce goods and services fast enough to meet this demand, price will go up. In short, too much demand and not enough supply cause price to rise. Second is cost push effect. Cost push inflation happens when the cost of producing goods and service goes up. This could be due to higher price for raw materials like oil or other key inputs. When introduction becomes more expensive, business raise their price, leading to higher price for consumers. For example, if oil price go up, energy costs rise and this affect the price of products. Last thing is built-in inflation. Built-in inflation happens when people expect price to keep rising in the future. Because of this, workers ask for higher wages to keep up with the cost of living. When wages go up, business raise their price to cover the extra cost. This creates a cycle where higher wages lead to higher price, and higher price lead to more demand for higher wages. Next, I will explaining about how to overcome inflation. First thing is price control. Price controls are limits set by the government on how high or low price can be for certain goods. Sometimes, wage controls are also used to stop wages from rising too fast. However, most economists believe that price controls don't work well to stop inflation. The experience in 1970s showed that these controls often fail due to other problems like oil shortage, poor harvest, and a complicated system. Second one is contractionary monetary policy. Contractionary monetary policy is used to reduce inflation by slowing down economic growth. This is done by increasing interest rates, which makes borrowing money more expensive. As a result, people and business spend less. Higher interest rates also encourage banks and investors to buy safer government bonds instead of investing in the stock market. This helps reduce the money flowing in the economy and keep price from rising too fast. Last thing is open market operation. Open market operation, OMO, are when the Federal Reserve buys or sells government bonds, treasuries to control the money supply. Buying bonds adds money to the economy, makes borrowing cheaper and lowers interest rates. Selling bonds take money out of the economy, make borrowing harder and raise interest rates. This helps the Fed manage inflation and keep the economy stable. Thank you.
2025,
Inflation in Turkey is still high, but there are signs it's slowly getting better. Prices went up about 38 compared to last year, which is slightly lower than the month before. While this shows some improvement, people are still feeling the pressure, especially in everyday areas like education, housing, and healthcare, where prices have jumped the most. To fight inflation, Turkey's central bank raised interest rates to 49%, one of the highest in the world. This makes borrowing more expensive, but it's meant to slow down spending and bring prices under control. The bank still expects inflation to drop to 24% by the end of the year, though it's ready to act again if things get worse. Political issues have also affected in the economy. The arrest of Istanbul mayor in March caused protests and made foreign investors nervous, leading them to pull out billions of dollars. This caused the Turkish lira to lose value, and the central bank had to use a lot of its foreign currency reserves to try to stop the damage. All of this has slowed down the economy. Growth is expected to be around 3% this year, which is lower than the government hoped. So while inflation is starting to come down, it's still a tough time for many people, and Turkey's economy remains fragile. The countries will need stable leadership and smart economic decisions to fully recover. Thank you. Interpretation. The graph shows a clear inflation or crisis peaking in 2022, with some improvement but continuing instability through 2024. It's a visual representation of the economic turbulence Turkey has faced, especially due to currency issues, global inflation, and domestic monetary policy decisions.
Today, I will briefly explain the unemployment situation in Turkey. There are several key theories explaining unemployment. First, the classical theory which say high wages cause unemployment, so labor market flexibility is needed. Second, the Keynesian theory, where low demand in the economy reduces jobs, and the solution is more government spending and supportive policies. Third, the structural unemployment theory, which highlight a mismatch between worker skills and jobs requirements, often linked to education gaps and technology change. Lastly, the Nairu theory, stating there's a natural unemployment rate going below it risks inflation. In Turkey, we see different types of unemployment. Structural unemployment is common due to skill mismatch. Frictional unemployment happens during short job transition. Other than that, cyclical unemployment rise during economic crisis. Youth unemployment is high, especially among graduates, and informal sector unemployment causes jobs insecurity for many without formal contracts. In short, unemployment in Turkey is driven by both economic factor and structural challenges requiring reform, better education, and job market improvement. Let me briefly explain the effects of unemployment in Turkey and how to overcome it. Unemployment in Turkey has serious consequences across three main areas. Economically, it leads to lower productivity, slower growth, reduced tax revenue, and higher government welfare costs. Socially, unemployment increases poverty, inequity, mental health problems, and even crime rates. Politically, high unemployment creates public dissatisfaction and increases the risk of populism and political instability. To address three challenges, Turkey needs strong policies. First, active labor markets policy, such as skills training, hiring incentive, and better job matching service. Second, education reform to align education with market needs and improve quality and access. Third, encouraging entrepreneurship by supporting startups and small business with funding and pro-business policies. In addition, macroeconomic stability is vital, focusing on stable policy and boosting job-rich sectors like tourism and manufacturing. Lastly, promoting digital transformation by providing digital skills training and encouraging business to adopt new technologies. With the right policies, Turkey can reduce unemployment and strengthen its economy and society. Thank you.
Unemployment situation according to Turkey. Turkey unemployment situation has improved recently, reaching its lowest rate since 2005. In March 2025, the employment rate dropped to 7.9%, down from 8.2% the previous month and much lower than the 8.6% recorded a year earlier. The number of employment people decreased to about 2.8 million, while employment rose to nearly 32.6 million. The overall employment rate increased to 49.2%, but there is still big difference between men and women, with 66.9% of men employed compared to only 31.9% of women. The labour force participant rate also went slightly to 53.4%. However, young employment remained to challenge, rising slightly to 15.1%. Although Turkey has made progress in reducing unemployment, especially compared to its peak of 14.1% in 2019, issues like gender inequality and youth joblessness still need attention. Diagram 10 years unemployment data Turkey. From 2015 to 2019, Turkey unemployment rate increased from 10.2% to a peak of 13.1%, likely due to economic challenge. Starting in 2020, the rate began to fall steadily, reaching 8.5% by 2024. This drop suggests improvement in the economy, better job opportunity, and recovery after the COVID-19 pandemic. Overall, the graph shows a period of rising unemployment followed by a strong recovery in recent years. Conclusion: Turkey is currently in a phase of economic recovery as the employment rate has successfully declined to its lowest level in 11 years, thanks to various government initiatives aimed to strengthening the labour market and attracting both domestic and foreign investment. However, the persistently high inflation rate hovering around 38% continues to place significant pressure on the cost of living, particularly in essential areas such as food, housing, and education. Therefore, although there are positive development in employment, challenges related to price stability and public welfare still require serious attention to ensure a more balanced and inclusive economic recovery.